And one sat there and listened, of course, which is a good thing about leadership. You need to listen carefully and make sure you're hearing the right things, make sure you're seeing the right things, make sure you're smelling the right things and touching the right things, and you really do understand what's going on before you make a judgment.
Well, this takes us into a question of what do you consider to be the elements of effective leadership?
To me, again, I think we have a problem these days, and that is that we are so in love with personality, and we're so in love with charisma, we're so in love with the oratorical gifts of people that we don't quite listen to what they say, and maybe we're not too interested in what they say. And so we give them license to say things and even make promises to us, which at the time, because of the circumstances, they really have no chance, at least in the near term, to fulfill. And so we are, because of the lack of thought and the ability of people to give matters sufficient thought, they often get caught with their foot in their mouth, obviously, and have to pay the price of that. So I think the principal thing that I look for and I try to demonstrate is substance, intellectual substance, the ability to analyze the situation and to lead people in a direction which is going to be successful because you've not overpromised, you've not underpromised, you have set the thing just about right. And of course, the biggest problem you have is when the promise is great and the delivery is low. That gap between expectation and achievement, of course, are in fact the immeasurable in the disappointment that people have, whether it's your shareholders, whether it's your constituents politically, whether it's your family, whether it's your partner, your wife, your husband, whatever. Mismanaging expectations is probably one of the greatest issues that we face, and that can often come because we react too quickly rather than think about things.
Well, when we talk about expectations and you talk about delivery, this makes me think of a conversation that we've had in the past. That you said you had an equation at Harsco that
Sure.
defined leadership. Could you share that with us, please?
Sure. Well, I even printed this in the annual report to shareholders a number of years ago, because it seems to me that ME plus D equals C. Einstein says E equals mc squared, relativity. Hathaway says ME plus D equals C.
What do those stand for?
Well, ME stands for managed expectations. If I manage by analysis and by thinking about something, I understand it. If I understand it, first of all, I have to manage my own expectations. When I manage my own expectations, I then need to manage my followers, if I'm a leader, manage their expectations as to what can be accomplished. So ME is managed expectations, plus then delivery. We need to deliver. In my job, I was paid to deliver, and I was ostracized if I didn't. I was accountable, clearly accountable. And therefore, I had a very great incentive in the accountability and the responsibilities that I had, a great incentive to deliver for my constituents. So ME plus D, delivery, equals C. And all a leader should expect is in fact credibility, C for credibility. And what we have today, I think, for better or for worse, for whatever reason, and I'm not here to point fingers, all I do is see the results. We have leaders that lack credibility because of the mismanagement of expectations of their constituents, the over-promising, the under-delivery, the foot and mouth disease complaint, reacting instead of thinking about things, pointing fingers instead of exercising judgment, and waiting and being patient. And then they wonder why their polls drop.
Over-promising. Well, my goodness, they've certainly seen
Sure.
Seen that.
But political leaders don't have exclusivity on that. This applies to all members of society and in any leadership position you wish to know.
How do we instill these elements that you've singled out of effective leadership? How do we, as parents, instill these qualities in our children? Do you have any thoughts on that? Certainly, you're a very successful parent and grandparent, and you've had to deal with this.
Well, I think we do it by ourselves having a belief system, a fundamental belief system in, if you like, in simple terms, what's right and what's wrong. I mean, whether you follow the Judeo-Christian principle or whether you follow the Muslim principle, and whether you're a Catholic, whether you're a Protestant, whatever the religion, Buddhist, Hindu, there's a fundamental basis to this, which is that living a productive life, having a concern for your fellow man in your life, living unselfishly. So I learned as a boy, as a member of a church, an evangelical church in England, and ultimately becoming chairman of the board of elders there. It was a Christian church. But again, I'm not claiming exclusivity on this, but if you have your beliefs, ours was this, Jesus first, others next, and yourself last, spells joy. But let's just paraphrase that, you know, a belief system, a value system that you live by is a great anchor. If you put others before yourself, that also will be a very, very rewarding experience. And, you know, the old phrase that, you know, the first shall be last and the last shall be first, there's profound wisdom in that, particularly in one's own, in the way one views oneself.
I think as age, as many of us age, we've come to realize, and perhaps at different times, how much more of a blessing it is to give than to receive.
Right.
Indeed. Well, let's take a break right here, and we'll come right back with Dr. Derek Hathaway after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by PAConstructionJobs.com, where you can look for job openings, post a resume, or learn more about a rewarding career in Pennsylvania's highway construction industry. And by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. By Weber Incorporated, a leading manufacturer of hardwood lumber and wood products. The Highway Equipment and Supply Company, Central and Northeast Pennsylvania's authorized distributor for premier construction equipment manufacturers. And the American Home Bank, a nationally chartered and FDIC insured yet locally owned and operated bank in central Pennsylvania. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States.
Welcome back to the special edition of Behind the Headlines, and we're having a special edition on leadership with Dr. Derek Hathaway. Derek, thank you again for being with us. We were talking about the elements of effective leadership, and one that you focused on was judgment. Would you elaborate, please, on some of the other ones for a second?
Sure. I was asked many years ago what I felt was the most important quality or characteristic, and I think that the leader's job is to bring a sense of reality into every situation, to try to understand what the reality is. One has the opportunity of listening to lots of people about lots of things in a leadership position, taking advice and consulting, and also living your life in the interrogative. In other words, asking questions until you're satisfied there are no more questions to be asked. So live your life in the interrogative is another situation. Judgment, sense of reality, live your life in the interrogative, clarity of communication, the ability to communicate your thoughts with clarity and and in a concise way, in a way that is not overcomplicated so that people really understand them. These are, to me, the fundamentals of a good leader in the position of being the leader in the outgoing sense,